Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon. Beth and Rip's Yellowstone spinoff confirms Taylor Sheridan cannot escape Kevin Costner's legacy. Yellowstone's upcoming Beth and Rip spinoff confirms that Taylor Sheridan can't shake Kevin Costner's legacy as John Dutton IV. Paramount Network's hit neo-western wrapped up its run with a show-changing decision for the Dutton kids to save the ranch from developers. With John IV dead, Beth and Case scrambled to ensure that their dad's dream of keeping it intact remained, and the solution was essentially giving the land back to the Broken Rock tribe. It's difficult to imagine if John IV had approved of this if he was still around, but it was the best outcome given the circumstances. The Yellowstone finale effectively wraps up the Duttons' collective story in the land that they occupied for 7 generations. However, the franchise will live with several spin-offs coming. Sheridan's universe already has an ongoing prequel with 1923, but his storytelling will continue in modern times with The Madison, a spin-off led by Michelle Pfeiffer, and another show spearheaded by Cole Hauser and Kelly Reilly. Currently untitled, Beth and Rip's spin-off story remains unclear, but its existence confirms that Sheridan can't escape Costner, even after John IV met his end in a show that is now finished. As fan favorites, Beth and Rip's story was heavily focused on in the main show. Yellowstone tackled their love story extensively, although since the flagship was still an ensemble, there are bits and pieces of their history that remain unexplored. Both as a couple and individually, Beth and Rip are very interesting, hence why it made sense that the franchise's next offshoot will front both of them. That being said, it isn't lost that what's being billed as a spinoff is essentially just Yellowstone Season 6, especially given how prominent the characters were in the original series. This is actually a point of contention for the upcoming endeavor right now. Yellowstone's Beth and Rip spinoff is potentially facing legal issues with regard to streaming rights. Sheridan and his creative team need to prove that the offshoot isn't simply a continuation of the mothership. Somehow, it's a blessing, since it forces the screenwriter to come up with new takes for the said characters. Regardless of how Sheridan deals with this issue, however, Beth and Rip's offshoot is the closest thing that viewers will ever have to Yellowstone Season 6. Beyond being interesting as characters, it's also worth noting that Beth and Rip are John IV's best successors. Case never really wanted to have anything to do with the ranch and had a contentious relationship with his dad. This doesn't mean that he didn't love him, he did. However, he was too different from him. Jamie, on the other hand, was so desperate for John IV's approval that he became resentful when he continued to fail to get it. Meanwhile, Beth was a daddy's girl through and through. Granted that she didn't agree with everything he wanted to do, but at the end of the day, she was loyal to him. The same can be said about Rip, who wasn't related to him by blood, but was arguably the son he always wanted. Because of what John IV did for him, Beth's husband was a committed ally to the Dutton family patriarch. Together, Beth and Rip are the best stalwarts of John IV's legacy in the Yellowstone franchise, whether that's by preserving his impact or by keeping his defining traits alive in the franchise. Seeing their story continue via their own spin-offs is the best way to highlight Costner's impact on the show. In fact, it would be difficult to craft Beth and Rip's future without acknowledging the influence John IV had on them. Because of the way Costner exited Yellowstone, the chances of him returning to the franchise are very slim to none. Sheridan had to be creative in the final episodes of the main show to be able to properly send John IV off, even when the narrative revealed that he was killed early on. Admittedly, the new show decides to use previously unseen footage of John IV via flashbacks or visions. Perhaps it can also tap a body double for it. However, it's highly unlikely that Costner will ever reprise his role again in the neo-western series. When the announcement dropped that Taylor Sheridan was developing a Yellowstone spinoff centered on Beth Dutton and Rip Wheeler, fans erupted with excitement. The duo's tempestuous love story has been a cornerstone of Yellowstone's success, and dedicating an entire series to their exploits seemed like a natural progression. However, this move also highlights an inescapable truth. Taylor Sheridan's creative universe is intrinsically tethered to Kevin Costner's legacy. The Kevin Costner effect on Yellowstone's DNA. Yellowstone is a sprawling epic about power, land, and family. At its heart has been John Dutton, the patriarch played with gravitas by Kevin Costner. Costner's portrayal of John, a character as much defined by his moral ambiguities as by his unyielding loyalty to his family, imbued Yellowstone with a cinematic weight that elevated it above standard television drama. Costner's involvement did more than bring a recognizable name to the series, it legitimized it. His presence bridged the gap between classic westerns and modern serialized storytelling, evoking comparisons to the stoic heroes of films like Dances with Wolves and Open Range. Costner's legacy in the Western genre became an integral part of Yellowstone's appeal, and his shadow looms large over every subsequent creative endeavor within Sheridan's universe. Beth and Rip, a tale shaped by John Dutton. The dynamics between Beth Dutton, Kelly Reilly, and Rip Wheeler, Cole Hauser, are inseparable from John's influence. As John's daughter, Beth embodies the Dutton family's fierce, uncompromising spirit, while Rip's loyalty to John's vision underscores his role as the family's enforcer. Their love story thrives in the crucible of John's ranch, a setting that shaped both their identities and their relationship. In a spinoff focused on Beth and Rip, the echoes of John Dutton's presence will be impossible to ignore. Whether through direct references, flashbacks, or thematic parallels, the character's legacy will inevitably color the narrative. This raises the question, can Sheridan craft a compelling series about these characters without leaning too heavily on the foundational role Costner's John played in their lives? The challenge of expanding a universe. Sheridan has proven himself a master of world building, as evidenced by Yellowstone spin-offs like 1883 and 1923. These prequels explored the Dutton family's origins, diving deep into the sacrifices and struggles that built their empire. While these series stood on their own merits, they were undeniably enriched by their connection to the Yellowstone mythos, a mythos anchored by Costner's portrayal of John Dutton. The Beth and Rip spinoff, however, represents a different kind of challenge. Unlike 1883 and 1923, which could explore entirely new eras and characters, this series must grapple with the audience's established understanding of Beth and Rip. Their arcs on Yellowstone have been deeply intertwined with John Dutton's leadership and the battles to protect the ranch. Stripping away John's influence risks diluting the character's complexity, but leaning too heavily on his legacy might stifle the spinoff's ability to forge its own identity. The weight of audience expectations. Beth and Rip are fan favorites, and their passionate, volatile relationship has become one of Yellowstone's most iconic elements. Fans will undoubtedly tune in to see more of their fiery exchanges, tender moments, and unrelenting loyalty to each other. But with those expectations comes a challenge. How do you expand their story without rehashing what's already been explored? On Yellowstone, Beth's character is defined by her sharp wit, emotional scars, and ruthless determination. Rip, by contrast, provides a steady, grounded counterbalance to her intensity. Together, they faced external threats and internal demons, often finding solace in each other amidst the chaos of the Dutton family's struggles. A spinoff centered on them must tread carefully to avoid turning these layered characters into caricatures of themselves. Moreover, the absence of John Dutton, both as a character and as a thematic anchor, will undoubtedly be felt. Kevin Costner's performance lent a gravitas to Yellowstone that helped elevate its melodramatic elements. Without him, the spin-off will need to find a new source of narrative weight and emotional resonance. Sheridan's dilemma: escaping or embracing the legacy. Taylor Sheridan's storytelling prowess lies in his ability to blend character-driven drama with sweeping cinematic landscapes. However, his reliance on familiar archetypes and themes risks creating a creative cul-de-sac. The Beth and Rip spin-off could either reinforce Sheridan's reputation as a masterful chronicler of flawed, larger-than-life characters or expose the limitations of his narrative toolkit.